you're very busy with the funeral, and the funeral in its own self is a very interesting ceremony in the African way, because that's when you really know where everyone stands. And while you're grieving, everyone else is grieving in their own way. Some people have lost a daughter, some people have lost a sister, some a best friend, and all that. And what is interesting at the time is that because we all look at things, I was looking at things from my side. You don't understand why they're not grieving for you, and everyone is not understanding why you're not grieving for them, and it becomes a very murky. And then we all have a way which we think we should bury the departed. So you've just seen what's going on.
Yeah.
In the MP's funeral.
Yes.
I can tell you for free, a burial is one of the most chaotic things you'll ever do, because you end up in such huge tiffs over stuff that does not matter. And it's in an intense period of 2 weeks or 1 week. For us it was 1 week, for some people it's 2 weeks. And people become really horrible. And at the same time you're grieving and you're fighting. And it's one thing which I think, as we discuss in these forums, we wish we could change. That if this was stuff that didn't bother you when the person was alive, why does it bother you now that they're dead? I spent so much energy fighting, and luckily I had some good friends who fought for me, in the people who were coming up with all their manner of things. And you're still, I'm in shock at the time. So at one point, I think on day 2 or 3, I gave up and said, whatever they want, give it to them. But immediately after, now when she was buried, and you start pulling yourself, for me, what has really, really helped in the healing is, one, listening to other stories and realizing there are people going through. I mean, just listening to her story, there are really, really chaotic stories out there. Celebrating the good that we had, the extra year that we got with Janet, and also more so understanding that they say anyone who has experienced death, and I think the two of them will attest to this, really understands life. When you understand death, you understand life, because every day you're one day closer to dying, and we all take it for granted. But every day we're one day closer to dying. And all of us, if we live even for a year, we're going to bury someone. And it will surprise you. One of the most shocking things is how quickly life moves on. I doubt anyone is talking about Bob Collymore right now. The whole country came to a standstill.
Yes.
It's gone. It's gone. And Ken Okoth, Joyce Laboso, next week, we'll be discussing the empty container. This is life,
life.
And when you're grieving, it shocks you because your world stops, and then the world doesn't stop.
The world moves, and you wonder why are they moving on.
You drive on the street and you're looking at people. Why are they not sad? Yesterday they were all over my social media accounts. My phone was blowing up. Everyone, whatever. And today they're like, and
nobody's saying anything.
No, I know.
Does that in a way affect you because you feel the pain? You're
I'm very bitter because after the funeral, you go back home and you just like realize it's, if you have kids, like for me, I had kids, and you sit down and it's just you. I'm telling you, it's
and they still have questions,
just you.
Some of which even you haven't figured out.
You haven't figured out, and you have a new. So it's just you. So I don't think we really realize just how alone we are until we grieve. And it's not that people don't care, but people are also caught up in their own lives. It's not that they don't care. It's they can't spend their whole day holding your hand. So there's a huge wake-up call, and then you also realize your mortality yourself. And those are some of the things that maybe we can talk about.
We can talk about, yes.
Yeah.
I think we should hear.
So many questions for the councillor, and
maybe we hear from her, take the break, then come back.
Back.
Because I believe there are strong lessons here for our viewers from what everyone has gone through.
She talked about people breaking the news without even figuring out where you are, just telling you things, and you're thinking, how do you even take that? He's talking about the world moving on, and you're left there, and you're wondering why they're sad.
And he's talked about the after effects of losing someone, in that now when you meet others, you cling on to them because you're afraid to lose them again.
But also you're thinking you lose them, so you don't want to also associate with certain people too close.
Yes.
So, yeah, just your
what are your initial thoughts from what you've heard so far?
Grief, just from the definition, grief is an emotional response to loss. And with that response comes with a lot of changes, psychological changes. And, you know, I'm picking from Pius, the issue of being so attached to people because of that fear, because you develop anxiety. What if the same thing happens to me? What if I lose this person again? And even the fact that people actually respond to grief in different ways, and people may not understand how best to support you at that time. And it's unfortunate we receive insensitive comments. We realize people move on, and you know, you want to talk about the deceased all through, but people cannot do that, and it's normal. That's the disadvantage part of it, because it's an awkward moment, and people need to know what best to do, what best to say when person is grieving.
But there's also the flip side where you really don't want to talk about the person you've lost, and everybody else wants to talk about them because they were maybe celebrities, and everybody always has a comment, and they see them, and you're thinking, just let me have some time to grieve. How do you deal with that?
Okay, as an individual, especially going through loss, what I would like to say, repressing those feelings and not wanting to talk about it is very risky, because ideally that's where depression comes in. But just being patient with yourself and allowing yourself to talk about it is very much important, because you'll be aware, what am I feeling? And even as much as you're aware, you'll be able to acknowledge your feelings and learn how to deal with them. Yeah.
Okay. I think let's take that quick break now, and then when we return, I have so many questions just for our audience here who've taken time to come here today and to share their stories. I'm still trying to process some of the stories that I've had here today. So let's take that break, and if we have any feedback, we can take a look at that when we return. 22422 is the SMS line. The hashtag is Daybreak as well. What has been your experience? How did you come out of a situation where you are grieving over a loved one, maybe within your family, a friend as well? What lesson can you share with other Kenyans to encourage them, even as the nation bears in mind that this weekend will be a weekend of mourning? The people of Kibra lost their member of parliament. The people of Bomet lost their governor as well. And many Kenyans have died, you know. The kind of numbers we're being given about cancer and other ailments as well that are taking the numbers. Okay.
Before we take that break,
we take it a bit later.
Delve into this conversation even more, and I'll come to you, Diana. People say that give yourself time and you'll be fine. Does that really work?
Oh, it takes time. It takes time.
But in that process, what do I do? Do I just sit there?
Be patient with yourself. Grieve as much as you can. That's the best you can do. Because grief is unique. I might take 2 years or 3 years. You might take 5 years. But it doesn't, with time, it gets better. You have less of crying days, less of bad days. The bad days will be there, but they will be fewer.
So there's no blueprint of this is how you do it. This is
and anyone can jump in, by the way. Feel free to just, if you hear something you just want to say, just go on.
So the way I would describe it, so when somebody dies, it's like a zigzag. So your life is a circle. So this zigzag fills the hill. So everything in the whole day is this person. So you wake up each morning, it's this person. You wake up, how could the, and you're really questioning.
Yes.
And grief is also a lot of why, and a lot of regrets and a lot of you wish you had, and very it's a very self-doubting.
Guilt sometimes?
Guilt, a lot of guilt. A lot of guilt, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of hate, a lot of bitterness, a lot of victim mode, and sometimes you just lose your mind. Now, what happens is that, like I said before, life has not stopped. So other things, so one circle forms around. So for example, if you have kids, the kids have to be taken care of, so you have to take care of them. You have to analyze it.
So you need to wake up and start sorting stuff out.
Exactly. Number two, the other tragedies happening all around. Just because I lost my wife doesn't mean my friend who maybe was in my funeral committee has lost their father. Now I can't go and jump in. There's a wedding. There's all these other things. So what happens is that it's not that the thing goes away, it's that circles form around it. And when you look at your whole aspect of life, that little thing, that's what time does. It just keeps, there goes away. The grieving never goes away. It's just that very many things start to happen. So one day you wake up and it's not the first thing you thought about, it's the second thing.
Yeah.
And then it becomes
because something else became
and
number one.
You'll always have triggers. One thing I've known, even until today, a trigger will happen. And what my experience has been, run towards the pain, not away from it. Just run towards it. So it's, and that's why people go wrong. People think grieving is you being sad for a thing. It's actually little pockets which will never end, even 50 years to come. If you're still here, you'll still grieve, but the two pockets, the circle will have become so small. So there are many other things going on, and it keeps appearing, then it disappearing. And sometimes it can take you out a whole day. For me, the worst day is the anniversary. The anniversary, it's not even the death. Our anniversary is literally like my most horrendous day.
You can just stay in the house here and
you can't move. You can't move. For the anniversary is like the worst day. And if you ask anyone who's lost a spouse, for some reason, you just feel them. And then the other days that are really celebratory, nice, we took a policy, we talk very much about her with my kids and with everyone, and it has helped me. So, but embrace the grieving. It will never go away. Okay. So, but don't make it like a bad thing. It's part of.
So you never really forget, you just learn to live with it.
You just learn to live with it, because it's not going to go away.
Okay, you wanted to say something? Jump in?
Yeah, so he talked about grieving being a process. It's not a one-time thing, and it's really true, because this happened, my first experience happened when I was really young, but then 20 years later, I'm still feeling it. 20
years later?
Yeah, so it's, as you said, it's these triggers that come. You come to a situation where you feel, you know, these people had a value in your life. They played a role. So when that time comes when you feel, I wish they were here, now that's when the pattern now starts again. Because I remember when I went through life and go to high school, even seeing other kids, you know, being visited by parents, you feel like you're missing something. And sometimes you might withdraw and go to a place and sit alone. And it happens even now when I'm in US sometimes. When you're in the US, you're there alone, juggling through life. And then, you know, people get visited, and then you're there, maybe a friend might come or someone else. That, you know, that thing keeps coming. So it reminds you, I'm missing something in life, I'm not complete. So it's, I thought at some point it's something that, you know, you will cry and then move on. But then it keeps coming in life.
Keeps coming back. Yeah. Did you ever feel guilty or feel like I was to blame for what you went through? And how did you rise out of that? Did you ever feel that? Because sometimes grieving comes with guilt.
Yeah.
For me, it's not guilty per se. It's having so many whys.
Worries.
Yeah, and so many questions. Why me? Why did this have to happen? And one thing that has really helped me in life is taking success as my way out. So because there are people who react by, if there's something that the person you lost wanted to achieve, so you put effort to achieve that thing, and then that's how like you make yourself feel better. So for me, it's not that the people I lost had something that I felt they wanted to achieve, but I wanted to be better and show them, hey, no matter what happened, you left me, but I was able to become this great person that I am today.
Okay. And I'd like to hear from Anne. And for you, it's a bittersweet sort of situation, because you got your child when you're saying goodbye to your mother. So when you see your child, what do you relate to? Does she remind you of your mother? Are you just happy to have her? How does that work for you?
Yeah, she does remind me of my mother. Because you see now when she turned 1 year, so on that particular day on the 13th is when my mother was buried. So every time I will carry this for the rest of my life as long as she's alive. Because every day I celebrate her birthday, I remember the day my mom was buried. Though I didn't see the burial process, which was my wish, but it has taken me a very long time, because I really wanted to really say goodbye to my mother, but I didn't. So as much as I was sent for pictures by my siblings, I still didn't get through the process of actually mourning her to the last minute. So it has taken me a very long time. Sometimes I would like text, because I've never deleted her number from my phone. Sometimes by default I would call, but the number is no longer working. So I wonder, it's been a long journey for me. As much as my daughter is there, I see her. But then I did not go through the mourning process. It has taken me a long time, even up to today. When I go back to the village, I go back to her grave. But then when I go back to the house, when I see her clothes, it reminds me of her, because she was not sick. She was just okay. She just died. So you see, now we were not put in the process. You know, when somebody is sick, at least you told, you prepared. But this, I was not prepared for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we should take that break.
Yeah.
When we come back, what I want to hear from you guys is, how does one help a grieving friend? What did your friends do to you that worked? And what did they do that you hated? That you were like, my guy, you're my friend, but this one, please never do that. Never say that again. Never do that again. I'd like to hear from you guys, because I know that's one of the things that people really have a challenge with when it comes to grieving, especially for men, trying to comfort others. So I think I can look at a bit of that and other things when we come back.
Yeah, we have some feedback, I believe. Maybe read a tweet. All right. Engineer Lazaro says, I lost my dad when I was preparing for KCPE. It was a terrifying experience, seeing all my hopes of joining the best school going down.
Okay. Is that a to be continued, or it was just... Okay, we are now at SMS's. Nixon Dugire Kindaruma. During grief, it's always important to speak face-to-face, to seek face-to-face support, not on phone, from people who care about you.
All right, you don't leave a name. You say, my grief is when I lost my sister since 2012, and I'm still to overcome it.
Still to overcome it.
7 years down the line.
Wow. Okay, let's take that quick break. Again, you can keep sending us your messages. Hashtag Daybreak 22422. Social Square every Friday. Usually very light topics. But today, we're getting into a topic that nobody wants to talk about, because it's important to learn. And that's what's happening here today. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.